Welcome to this episode of Using the Conjunction, and today we're going to be talking about the conjunction when. The conjunction when is used with two actions, and we're going to show those actions with purple and green boxes. Purpose 1 is to show cause and effect. So if we have the example, it was sunny outside, which is our cause, which might lead to I went to the park. To show that in writing, we actually have to switch the effect and the cause. So I went to the park when it was sunny outside. And the when goes in the middle. So it's effect, when, cause. So our full sentence would be, I went to the park when it was sunny outside. The next purpose of the conjunction when is to show an action being interrupted by another action. Let's take the action, I was listening to music. This is a continuous action. It wasn't just listen to music once. It was happening over a certain amount of time. Then all of a sudden, me listening to music was interrupted when the phone rang. To show the sentence form of this, or when we would use when, we put it in the middle. So I was listening to music when the phone rang. The verbs in this sentence, was listening and rang, are in two different forms. The first verb, to show that that action was happening continuously, we use past progressive or was verbing, was listening. But our second verb stays in the regular past tense form. And in this case, it is an irregular rang. Purpose 3, to show an action at a certain time or age. And first we're going to talk about age. So I wanted to be a mermaid. And that was when I was 8 years old. So we would again put the when in the middle, and our full sentence would be, I wanted to be a mermaid when I was 8 years old. Now we can also talk about a certain time. So it's not necessarily a specific age. So the action is I still wanted to be a mermaid, but now it's a certain time, and it was in elementary school. Again, we put the when in the middle. So our full sentence would be, I wanted to be a mermaid when I was in elementary school. So we've been talking about using when as a conjunction in the middle of a sentence, but we can also switch our actions and move when to the beginning of a sentence. When we do this, we need to make sure that we have a comma after our first subordinating clause. So after our first action. So let's take a look at our previous sentences and how we can switch those to have the subordinating clause at the beginning of a sentence. So our first sentence, I went to the park when it was sunny outside. I would actually switch my cause and effect back to the original order. And I would stick when in the beginning, make sure I have that comma after that first clause, and a period at the end. So my sentence would look like this. When it was sunny outside, comma, I went to the park. For purpose 2, to show an action being interrupted by another action, we'll use the same example. I was listening to music when the phone rang. In this case, I was listening to music. The interrupting action will be moved to the beginning of the sentence. So we will say, when the phone rang, comma, I was listening to music. And this is what our sentence would look like written out. For our sentence, we still want to use the past progressive tense, I was listening, to show that continuous action that was interrupted when the phone rang. For our purpose 3, to show an action at a certain time or age, I wanted to be a mermaid when I was 8 years old. We would move that age to the beginning of the sentence. So we would have when I was 8 years old, comma, I wanted to be a mermaid. All right, to recap what we have learned, there are 3 purposes to using the conjunction when. Purpose 1 is to show cause and effect. Purpose 2 is to show an action being interrupted by another action. And purpose 3, to show an action at a certain time or age. When we're using the conjunction when, there could be 2 ways to write the sentence. The first way is when in the middle of your actions. The second way is to move that clause or that second action all the way to the beginning of the sentence. But when you do that, you need to use a comma after when's clause. For our purpose 1, to show cause and effect, we had I went to the park when it was sunny outside. To move that to the beginning, we would say when it was sunny outside, comma, I went to the park. To show an action being interrupted, we use the sentence, I was listening to music when the phone rang. And our other form would move that last clause to the beginning, when the phone rang, comma, I was listening to music. And finally, purpose 3, to show an action at a certain time or age. I wanted to be a mermaid when I was 8 years old. To form our second sentence, we move that last clause to the beginning of the sentence, when I was 8 years old, comma, I wanted to be a mermaid. So thank you for listening to this episode of Using the Conjunction.